What does the technique look like of a swimmer who's beaten the GOAT, Jan Frodeno, out of the water on multiple occasions? Today we're looking at professional triathlete Sam Laidlow, looking at his stroke. He's someone who I had on the podcast recently, and we talked a bit about his training, what are the things he focuses on with his stroke. And in this video, we're going to break down his technique and see what are those things that allows him or makes him so quick that he can beat Jan Frodeno out of the water. Now, you'll see here with his stroke, obviously he's not racing here. His stroke rate's going to be a bit lower than what he's racing, but I want to show you through some of the technical things that I can spot here that might benefit you when you're focusing on your own swimming. Now, from the very first angle here, we'll see that his body position is really nice. We get the head, the hips, and the heels all near the surface. So nice horizontal body position. As you know, the number one thing we got to do is minimize drag, because if your hips and legs drop down, it takes a lot of effort to overcome that. You'll also notice with his head position, I really like this. So he's looking down there. And you know the range that we like to sort of keep is anywhere from there to there. So in this video, he's looking most of the way down, but I like this. Really keeping that neck long. He's kind of tucking the chin in to almost like the base of the neck. And this is one of those sort of funny ones that you don't really get taught as a kid, or taught if you're doing adult sort of swim lessons or anything like that. But we want to maintain this long neck, tuck the chin into the base of the neck, almost like you're going for a little bit of a double chin. Now, not to the point where you can't breathe easily, but just where we've got that kind of posture and head position. So that looks really good. You'll also notice when he breathes here, he gets this nice split vision. So part of this bottom goggle stays in the water. Now you don't need to go completely half in, half out, but he breathes straight to the side and gets a bit of that split vision, which is really nice. The other thing you'll notice here is that when he kicks, his heels are breaking the surface every couple of kicks there, which is great. Let's pop that up a bit closer. And he's keeping the kick fairly narrow, fairly tight. So when I'm working with people and they send in their videos or they come to a clinic, one of the things that we'll look at is their kick. And I like to think of containing your kick in about a bucket, about that size out behind you. If you can contain your kick there, then you're not going to have excess drag from kicking too large. So nice size of the kick that he's got there too. You'll also notice that he's keeping it fairly relaxed. Sometimes we find that people are quite stiff and rigid with it. So we want to keep those feet loose and floppy. Now, as we go to this view here from the side, we'll have a look at what happens with his hands once he enters. So you'll notice here that the first thing to enter is his fingertips. Now, the reason that we want the fingertips to enter first is that will allow you a little bit of time to then just get rid of those bubbles and that air that gets caught on your fingers and your hand as you reach forward. So it gives you a bit of space to reach forwards in the water, gets rid of those bubbles, and then you'll see that as he goes through the catch, he's gotten rid of those bubbles, which is important. Now you might notice here, all right, his fingers are sort of apart a little bit. It doesn't matter too much what happens through this part of the stroke as you're reaching forwards. You know, a bit of a gap through the fingers is fine. It's really once we get into the catch that we want the fingers to mostly be together. A bit of a gap is absolutely fine. What we don't want is a really tense hand. Too much tension if that's the case. A bit of a gap is fine. So I like the term soft hands, meaning just, keep enough tension in the hands to hold that shape and that form, but don't overdo the tension there. And obviously we don't want it loose and floppy. Now, the other thing you'll see here, as he goes through this part of the stroke, okay, he's reaching forwards. He gets to that starting catch position of fingers below wrist, wrist below elbow, and the fingertips are about underarm depth there, which is great. So if you've seen our YMCA drill, or you've gone through our 5-day catch challenge, you'll know that that's kind of like the number one position that we want to get to, the first position we want to get to when we once we've entered. Because that's going to allow you to set up a really good catch compared to, what a lot of swimmers do is they're up here, they're putting the brakes on and not setting themselves up very well. Now from here down to here, with often a really good catch, we see that the upper arm doesn't move a whole lot. while the forearm and the hand tips down. Now that's not going to be possible for some swimmers if you're really tight through the shoulders. Some people just don't have that range through their shoulders. But if we can work towards that even just a little bit to set up the catch, that's going to help you get this high elbow position, meaning that at the end of the catch, which is right about here, if we were to draw a line from his shoulder to his fingers, we'd notice that the elbow is above that line. So we'd consider that a high elbow catch. And the reason that that's beneficial is that the forearm and the hand is then angled to press back against the water. So you can see how much surface area he's got with this part of his arm and even the upper arm a little bit to just press back and hold water. So really nice setup of that catch on both sides. Now the other thing I quite like here is it looks like he's using the catch as the setup phase. So we don't want to overpower the catch from here to here, because it's not strong. That overhead movement's not necessarily very strong. And if he were to just really power it on, like turn the power on right now, it's not going to do much except for press down on the water. So he's just letting himself sort of set up here. All right, now once he's got that, then he can start to apply a bit more pressure and power. And we've had a lot of people who have come to clinics who have had issues with their shoulders. And once they've backed off that power a little bit in the beginning, they haven't had issues with their shoulders. Because obviously, if you're applying a lot of power through here, it can really cause some issues on the shoulder there. So that part looks great. You also notice here, he exits past the hip. So he's exiting just past the hip there. And the other thing too is the palm of the hand is facing back behind him most of the way through here. So he's keeping that pressure on really nicely. Now let's have a look at a couple other angles here. So from above the water, if we have a look at this recovery, first of all. So with the recovery, this looks good. That seems to be a fairly comfortable position for the shoulder, because if you are coming really close to the body with that hand, thinking of that classic high elbow recovery where people think that they need to come close to the body, that's awkward, that's uncomfortable. Whereas if you just let that hand come out a bit wider, it's so much more natural. It's so much easier to bring the arm over that way, especially if you maybe have a desk job or you're used to riding the bike in TT position, your shoulders aren't that flexible, then this is going to be so much easier for you, especially if you've got a wetsuit on. So that's a good position to be in. Similar thing on this left-hand side, even comes a little bit wider. We looked at the 100 freestyle from David Popovich, who broke the world junior record. And I mean, similar position to where he's at, similar to position where you see Katie Ledecky at, Ariana Titmus, like a lot of these swimmers are out there. So I think sometimes that confusion with the high elbow comes from people thinking that the hand needs to come close to the body. What you will see though is that the elbow points up to the sky. So if you think of you're being taught a high elbow recovery, what that really is, I like to think is the elbow's more pointing up to the sky, as opposed to trying to get the elbow really high over the top. Now, as we go to the next part of the stroke, you'll see here with his entry and alignment. So the hand enters roughly in line with that shoulder. So we like to think of that train tracks swimming. So every time your hand enters, you want to follow the train track out in front. So always enter in line with your shoulder or your ear and extend forwards in front of your shoulder and your ear, which you can see through here. So nice alignment all the way through the body. You're going to cut through the water so much better that way if you can do that. And then you'll see the right hand does a similar thing. It's in line with that shoulder and extends forwards. So nice alignment there. All right, let's check out some other angles. Now from this angle here, again, you'll just see that similar sort of recovery. The other thing I like to sort of aim for, or want swimmers to try and achieve, is for you to come over the top of the water comfortably. As a coach, if I'm walking along the side of the pool, I want to be able to see your underarm if I'm looking at that side there. So you notice each side, we can see that underarm. Now, it doesn't need to be a huge amount where you're really coming way out or anything like that, but just get enough rotation of the shoulders out of the water, like you're sort of bringing the shoulder back a bit to allow the shoulder to come out enough where the coach could see your underarm. And you'll see where he's entering out in front of the head. That also looks good. So we're just getting this triangle, right, where it's fingers first, elbows just up, and then you get this nice little sort of slap of the elbow, because once he hits that entry there, he just straightens it, And you can actually hear that elbow slapping down into the water once you go to straighten the arm. And if you look at that breathing too, straight to the side through there, which is really nice. Now the other angle we want to check out is the front view from under the water. So let's skip ahead to that here. All right, here we go. Now I really like this view. You know, if when I'm working with people now, stroke analysis coaching online, I ask them to send the front view and the side view from under the water if that's all they can get, because that's where we can really see most of the things happening in the stroke. So from this front view, one of the things we like to look at is, right, what's happening through the catch? Are you starting in line with your shoulder? Yes, it is. Then what happens there? Do you tip your fingertips down, and like where you're at when you finish the catch? And one of the things we like to look at is the angle of the arm when you are at the end of the catch. Now with elite swimmers, we will typically see this angle's 100 to 120 degrees. You'll see he's at 109, so he's smack bang in the middle of it. He's within range, which is exactly what we want to work towards. Now, why do we see elite swimmers in this sort of range? Well, it's typically because that's the sort of angle that a high elbow catch will translate to when we're looking from the front. That's usually when we find they can really be set up well to be using their lats through the stroke. Whereas if you go a bit deeper, let's say he was down like, let's measure that. Let's say he was down a bit deeper and straighter, and that angle would be 140. Well, down there, we find that it can put a bit more pressure through the top of the shoulder as opposed to the lats and through the back and the shoulders there. So we find it's typically a stronger position, particularly for distance freestyle. So it's more sort of sustainable because you can do it for a lot longer than if you do go for a sort of deeper catch. Now, if you look at the path of the hand here, you'll see the hand starts, like the shoulder, it comes away from the shoulder a bit, and then it comes in. So here's the in sweep. So it comes from there, moves in towards the center a bit, and finishes near the hip. So the way I like to think of that is it's like you're tracing the outside line of your body, the outside part of your body there, where you'll come away from the shoulder, back in near the hip. So that's a pretty similar path that we'll see with most of the really good freestyles that we tend to film and we tend to work with. So that's roughly the path that we want to try and follow. We'll even sometimes see that some swimmers will even come in closer, a bit more under the body through that back part, but tracing that outside line of the body is a pretty good way to go. So that is excellent. I also like the timing of the stroke. So one of the things that I think is really important, even if you've got a fast stroke rate and you're doing triathlon, we still want that distinct reach phase out in front. And what I'm working with a lot of swimmers on at the moment who have recently started working with me is there's been quite a few who have been entering the water and pulling immediately through. They haven't got this distinct reach phase out the front. But once you add it, so you enter, think of as though you're reaching for the wall, and then pull through. That gives you that little bit more time to set up the catch out in front of the stroke. And it just allows you to get slightly better timing and coordination through the rest of the stroke, which can make your swimming feel so much easier. And I feel like that is what can move you from feeling like you're on a treadmill, you just can't get off, to just skating from your left side to your right side. Now, why does that timing help? Well, if you have a look at, let's get a better angle of it here. If you have a look at this here. So if you just, slow down that reach, have a distinct reach forwards phase, then we actually get this here. So he's moving through the catch. Okay, if you have a look at this part, he's set up the catch now. He's about to apply a bit more force. And at that same time, this opposite hip is moving back. So it's kind of that cross connection through the body that we want to get, because you can be, your hips are very strong. That's where you can really deliver a lot of power and force is through your hips. But if you start your catch too soon, then we don't quite get that connection from the catch to the hips coming back to the other side, like you can see there. And so that's when we find that people's timing is out. But by having that distinct reach phase, that's what brings it together. So I hope you enjoyed that. Now, if that felt like a lot of things to think about and you're not sure where to start, what I would suggest is check out the 8-week Faster Freestyle program that we've got inside our membership. We're up to week 4 that we're currently releasing 1 week at a time, but it's going to be inside our membership going forwards. And so in the 8-week Faster Freestyle program, we start with the basics. We start with breathing. and we progressively build up from there. And inside of that, there's a 5 to 10 minute video each week with a suggested warm-up with drills to work on each of those things that we cover in that week. And then there's workouts for each week as well. So you can go through the suggested warm-up, go through the workout, and then you're gonna start to develop and you start to take on these things that we're trying to develop as part of your own stroke. And so it's a way to keep it really simple. Make sure you build up good fundamentals and then work on the things that are a little more coordinated, a little trickier. And there's also the ability to ask questions and comment, and I'm in there answering questions every day. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And if that sounds like something that you would enjoy and would suit you well, I'll put a link below to join the membership. It's the 8-week Faster Freestyle program that we are releasing 1 week at a time at the moment. So I'll see you inside. Thanks for watching.